Greetings and salutations. Hello everyone. As you can tell from the title of this video, we're going to be talking again about one of my favourite things, and that's how gay Eddie Kaspbrak is. This video is a follow-up to Eddie Kaspbrak is Gay, You Can't Change My Mind. I think that was the title. That was back when the You Can't Change My Mind meme was relevant, but you know. Basically, I did that video because there was already a video that I haven't seen around on YouTube about like Reddie is real. A lot of my mutuals on Twitter had talked about, so I didn't want to do a Reddie one, but most of the comments of that on that video were from Reddie shippers, and I had a few people asking me if I was going to do a Reddie video, and I really wanted to. I haven't seen the other girl's video, I think it's called Reddie is Real, Stephen King's a Coward. Just from the title, I'm assuming she's way more funny and interesting than I could ever be, but I haven't seen her video because I don't want to copy it, and I hope I'm not copying any of what she says, or it's not the same premise. Like, I swear to God, I am not trying to replicate what she's doing. I would never want to do that to another creator. Basically, what we're gonna be doing is analysing some fucking bits of the book that I think are just so heavily hinting at Richie and Eddie being in love with each other, and then we're going to touch a little bit on the miniseries and the film, but we're mostly going to deal with the gayness in the book. The first bit I'm going to be reading today is one of the most classic Reddie quotes that there is in the fandom, and it's, "Had any good chucks lately, Eds?" He says out loud and laughs again. Man, he had hated it when Richie called him Eds, but he'd sort of liked it too. This is a quote that I see Stoja fans like ignoring all the time, because they're like, yeah, like Eddie hated it when Richie called him Eds, and he did it all the time even though he knew Eddie hated it. Like, no, it wasn't the thing. Eddie liked it. It was a front. It was the banter and the friendship that he had with Richie. He acted like he hated it when he actually liked it, because it made him feel like someone else. It made him feel like he wasn't Eddie Kaspbrak, because he didn't like being Eddie Kaspbrak at the time because of his mother. Book quote 2. Richie came bopping down to the stream, glanced at Ben with some interest, and then pinched Eddie's cheek. "Don't do that! I hate it when you do that, Richie." "Oh, you love it, Eds," Richie said and beamed at him. "So, what do you say? You having any good chucks or what?" I'm sorry, Stephen King is like the king of subtext and like hidden plots in his stories. Like, don't fucking tell me that Richie and Eddie having like a special bond was like not them being like so fucking in love with each other, especially when there was so much coding for Eddie being gay as well. Like, book quote 3. The cigarette jutted upward between his teeth. "Winston tastes good, like a cigarette should." He turned his head slightly and winked at Eddie. "Ain't that right, Eds?" That's just Richie flirting, but like Richie didn't flirt with anyone as much as Richie flirted with everyone, but he didn't flirt with anyone as much or as much or as intently as he did Eddie. Book quote 4. "Oh, you mean it was your idea, Eds? Jesus, I'm sorry." He fell down in front of Eddie and began salaaming wildly again. "Get up, stop it, you're splattering mud on me," Eddie cried. Richie jumped to his feet a second time and pinched Eddie's cheek. "Cute, cute, cute," Richie exclaimed. "Stop it, I hate that." He didn't hate that. He didn't hate that, guys. That's the moral of the story. He kind of liked it too. Also, again, Richie never flirted with anyone, not even Beverly as much as he flirted with Eddie, and it was just it was in a different way. Book quote 5. This is slightly flirting. I don't know. It stood out to me. "What's that?" "It's a disease you get from fucking," Richie said. "You know about fucking, don't you, Eds?" "Sure," Eddie said. He hoped he wasn't blushing. That could very easily mean he was blushing because, you know, blushing, he's 11 years old and they're talking about sex. But it's just like Richie was flirting with him, and like, I don't know, it stood out to me as like a hinty thing, you know? It stood out to me as a Reddie moment. Book quote number 6, I think. "They'll pinch my cheek and tell me how much I've grown," Eddie said. "That's because they know how cute you are, Eds. Just like me. I saw what a cutie you were the first time I saw you." "Sometimes you're really a turd, Richie." Again, he never flirts with anyone else like this. That's pretty much all the like major Reddie moments that happened in like the happy-ish sections of the book. So now we're gonna get to the parts that make me want to fucking die. Like, 10 years. This one's still like relatively happy because it's from when they were kids, but it's right after Eddie's just like shot Pennywise with his aspirator, like the eye with his aspirator a whole bunch of times. "I'm doing the mashed potatoes all over it and I got a broken arm," Richie said and giggled madly. "Not too shabby, Eds. Actually pretty chuckalicious, tell you what." "I hate it when you call me Eds." "I know," Richie said, hugging him tightly. No offense, but Richie knew he didn't. Now we're actually up to the part that makes me wanna... I'll see if I can read this without actually crying my eyes out. I'm gonna read this whole scene and then we're gonna talk about it. Eddie fell to the floor, the ragged stump of his arm spraying blood, faintly aware that Bill was getting shakily to his feet, that Richie was weaving and stumbling around him like a drunk at the end of a long, hard night. "Eds," far away, unimportant. He could feel everything running out of him along with his life's blood, all the rage, all the pain, all the fear, all the confusion and hurt. He supposed he was dying, but he felt, oh God, he felt so lucid and clear, like a window pane which had been washed clean and now lets in all the gloriously frightening light of some unsuspected dawning. The light, oh God, that perfect rational light that clears the horizon somewhere in the world every second. It's, oh my God, Ben, someone help him, he's lost his arm, He looked up at Beverly and saw she was crying, the tears coursing down her dirty cheeks as she got an arm under him. He became aware that she had taken off her blouse and was trying to staunch the flow of blood, and that she was screaming for help. Then he looked at Richie and licked his lips, fading back, becoming clearer and clearer, emptying out all of the impurities flowing out of him so he could become clear, so that the light could flow through, and if he had had enough time, he could have preached on this, he could have sermonized. Not bad, he would begin. This is not bad at all. But there was something else he had to say first. Richie, he whispered. What? Richie was down on his hands and knees, staring at him desperately. Don't call me Eds, he said and smiled. He raised his left hand slowly and touched Richie's cheek. Richie was crying. You know, Eddie closed his eyes, thinking how to finish, and while he was still thinking it over, he died. Let's talk about this. First of all, if you haven't read the book and are just like watching this video, you won't know, but everything that Richie says from the first Eds to like, Eds, oh my God, Bill, Ben, someone, he's lost his arm, help him please, like all of that panic is all in lowercase. Grammatically incorrect and was done for a reason. I think it's to show you how panicked and scared Richie was. This technique is never used again in the book, and I think it's because no one else in the book experiences the fear and the emotions that Richie is feeling in this second. Another thing I want to mention is how Eddie says he feels clear. He feels like everything's, you know, phasing out and he can see the light and it's not bad, and he felt lucid. And then he looks at Beverly for a second, and then he looks at Richie and he says he can feel all the impurities leave him, which, as I said in my Eddie Kaspark is gay, changed my mind, whatever video, Eddie had a lot of, I think, internalized homophobia, like a lot of it, and saying that as he looked at Richie as he died and as his mind cleared, he felt all his impurities leave, and then he was like, there's something I have to tell Richie. Eddie's actual last words is written in the way that he's, you know, Richie's just called him Eds and he's saying, you know, don't call me Eds, you know how I, and then he, you know, trails off and dies. But the thing is, if that's something he's been saying a lot since he was a kid, he wouldn't have had to close his eyes and think about it even while he was dying. It's so heavily implied that he was going to say something more, whether it's, you know how I love that, you know I love you, you know you were my favorite, anything that doesn't fit into this mold, but anything along those lines. It was something emotional that he had to tell Richie in his final moments, and he never got to, which makes me so fucking sad. But moving on. Everything else in that scene, I think, speaks for itself. So now Eddie's dead. These are all bits after he's passed away. Richie turned Bill toward him, looking at him as you would look at a man who was hopelessly raving. Bill, we have to take care of Eddie. We have to get a tourniquet on him, get him out of here. That's just Bill panicking, saying that they have to help Eddie, but his head's in Bev's lap. She's closed his eyes. He kind of looks at her and realizes that it's kind of too late, and he sees the light losing, and he's like, we've got to kill it, and that's why he keeps moving forward. There's a few little bits on this page that I want to point out. First of all, there's the bit where they're talking about how they have to get out of the sewers because the water's flowing in, and Richie just like really quietly goes like, how are we gonna do it without Eddie? And he's the only one who's really concerned, not about how are we gonna do it, but how are we gonna do it without Eddie. Then they're leaving Pennywise's lair specifically, and Richie and Ben carry Eddie out, and Beverly's like, put him down, he can stay here. It's too dark, Richie said. You know it's too dark, Ed. No, it's okay, Ben said. Maybe this is where he's supposed to be. I think maybe it is. They put him down, and Richie kissed Eddie's cheek. Then he looked blindly up at Ben. You sure? Yeah, come on, Richie. Richie got up and turned toward the door. Fuck you, bitch, he cried suddenly, and kicked the door shut with its foot. It made a solid chucking sound as it closed and scratched. Why'd you do that? Beverly asked. I don't know, Richie said, but he knew well enough. This bit, okay. First of all, you have Richie begging not to leave Eddie in the dark because Eddie doesn't like the dark and he doesn't want to leave his body down there, and the loser he trusts most besides Eddie is Ben, and that's why Ben is the one to kind of say this is where Richie's supposed to be, and he assures Richie of all of that. Sorry, my Twitter's going off with notifications about people talking about Mike Handler's casting, and I'm not angry about it at all. And then there's Richie screaming "fuck you bitch" into the lair and kicking it down, and Beverly asking, why did you do that? And Richie saying, I don't know, but he knew well enough. Richie was mad because he loved Eddie and Pennywise took Eddie away from him, and that's why he fucking retaliated, and he had to physically take it out. He knew well enough. He knew what Ed's was to him when the others didn't. The last bit from the book I'm going to mention is just how when they're all walking into, I think it's a coffee shop, after they've gotten out of the sewers, and Beverly looks at a reflection in a piece of glass, and there's the 4 losers, not Mike, he's in hospital, and she sees Richie and Stan walking with them as well, and it's specifically mentioned that Eddie is behind Richie, and I think that means something. That's all I really want to mention from the book. I'm going to briefly cover some of the moments from the movie and the miniseries that are like hinting. So first we're going to talk about the miniseries, which is back here on my shelf behind Richie. The miniseries, one, I love adult Eddie so much in the miniseries. I don't think there's that much like ready coding. I do think there is still, however, quite a bit of coding for Eddie being gay, with adult Eddie being a virgin, saying he never loved anyone like he loved the losers. There's a lot of just little moments in the miniseries of Richie and Eddie just like mucking around and doing whatever they please. But the thing I want to mention is in the ending monologue, I think. The ending monologue where you're kind of finding out where everyone ends up. And it says that Richie's in Hollywood and he's acting, I believe. He's got a role in a movie with a co-star who's very comedic, who any of the lucky 7 would tell you looks and acts a lot like Eddie Kaspbrak. Okay, now the 2017 film. This one I always feel iffy talking about because the actors and the director didn't think Reddie was real. Like, they weren't trying to code Eddie as gay, they weren't trying to make Richie and Eddie seem like a thing. Yeah, there are just all these little moments. Eddie only getting Richie an ice cream, Richie's attention always being on Eddie. For example, the projector scene where he's kind of just like looking away, and then as soon as Eddie like kind of starts freaking out, he just boom, like Eddie senses, and then pulls Eddie into his arms when Pennywise starts attacking because he wants to protect him. The fact that in Neibolt house, Richie like grabs Eddie's face and forces him to look at him rather than look at Pennywise, despite Pennywise literally forming it into one of Richie's worst fears. You can see the werewolf claw, and the fact that the clown is another one of Richie's worst fears in the film. And Richie's main concern is just making sure that Eddie's okay and that Eddie isn't looking at Pennywise. Also, when Richie's like having a panic attack, when he finds the missing poster, and Bill's kind of talking him down, like talking him through it, yeah, he doesn't actually calm down until he looks at Eddie. And the fact that Richie's the only loser that Eddie hugs as he's leaving. They're all just like small things, like, ah, yes, maybe we're slightly on the same page. I think it just proves that the film obviously knew that Richie and Eddie had a bond that was different to the other losers, and they interpreted it as, I believe they interpreted it as like a brothers sort of thing, whereas I interpreted Eddie and Bill's relationship to be a brotherly thing, and I think, as we know, I think Eddie had a massive fucking crush on Bill, as did like every single loser. But I also think that Richie and Eddie spent their entire fucking lives pining after each other, and it didn't end well for them, unfortunately. I think that's all I'm going to be saying today. Covering Eddie's death scene wasn't the funnest moment of my existence. Comment down below anything to do with Reddie, literally anything. Comment if you think it's real, comment if you think it's not. I want to hear your reasons why. Comment your favourite moments from the film, miniseries, book, I don't care. Comment Reddie fics for me to read, and we can recommend ones to each other. I have a long list of favourites. Just chat to me about Reddie, because I never want to stop talking about my little babies. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see me making more awkward videos every now and then. Also, I'm like a proper ginger now, so if anyone's writing like an It fan movie and they want to cast me as teenage Beverly Marsh, like fucking hit me up. I love you guys, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye. Mwah.